Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This is our fifth session of the day, and I'm excited to introduce Carrie, Michaela, and Eric. They will be talking about working with the bookstore. Take it away.
Thanks so much. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for attending our presentation from Bookstore to Library, a collaborative workflow for student textbook savings. My name is Michaela Betez. I am the Open Educational Resources Librarian, and primarily what I spend my time doing is working with faculty to identify and implement zero cost replacements for their traditional textbooks with the goal of saving students some money. So I'll pass it off to Carrie so you can introduce yourself.
I am Carrie Prelutz. I'm the collection development and management librarian, so I oversee the whole collection. And I've been here at Pollock Library for about 6 years now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eric Karkoff. I'm a research and instruction librarian. My subject areas are psychology, kinesiology, philosophy, and religious studies. And then on top of that, I do a bunch of other things like collection development, a little bit of assessment, and whatever else the library needs.
Yes, so while we're the ones presenting today, we're by far not the only folks who are involved in this project. There are a lot of us working on this behind the scenes to create this list that we eventually provide for students. And this is why we felt this was a good project to share for the particular theme of this conference, because there are so many of us doing work that our students probably will never know about, but can directly impact their learning and also faculty teaching. So we felt it was a good fit. And the purpose of the project is to save students money on their course materials by alerting them when those materials are available through the library. So in order to ensure that students will have access to the materials when they need it, this list is specifically referring to ebooks that have multi-user licenses. So it's not meant to be a fully comprehensive list of everything in the library. So it's not like our course reserves or things like that. This is a specific mechanism. And the way that we go about this is by identifying the required materials that are available, compiling those in a list that students can access from the library website, and then alerting faculty so that they can share that information with students either on their Canvas, which is our campus learning management system, or putting it on their syllabus. And the process for this, because it's an evergreen project that we do every semester, it's frequently evolved and has changed significantly over time. So it started off with just two librarians who kind of did this in a really intensive hands-on way. But now it involves tenure track librarians, contract librarians, full-time staff from multiple library departments, and then, of course, our colleagues over in the campus bookstore as well. So we create this every semester, but we're always looking for ways to make this more efficient and to streamline the process. And with that said, we're sharing the way that we do this project with y'all in hopes that if you're not currently offering something like this, maybe this will be an inspiration to attempt something if you have university students that you'd like to share that with. Or if you do something like this and you have a better, more efficient way to do it, we're hoping that you'll share that with us as well. So to give you a little bit of background about our institution, there's a particular need on our campus for a resource like this. So Cal State Fullerton is one of the largest, if not still the largest CSU campus in the system. We have over 2,200 faculty, and this fall, our full-time enrollment was over 38,000. Most of our students indicate that they are Hispanic, and the second largest demographic on our campus is Asian and Asian American students. So it's a very diverse student population. Most of our students are Pell Grant eligible, with 60% or just about 60% of them receiving those grants to pay for their education. So that demonstrates that our students are coming from places of significant financial need when they're paying for their education. And lastly, a little over 30% of our students are the first in their family to attend university. And this is significant for this project because a lot of the times the cost saving measures that students will learn over time to implement in how they can save money on textbooks and things like that, if they don't have that institutional knowledge already baked in, they're not necessarily going to know about it. So we're taking the step to provide them with some of this information to hopefully make this a little bit easier for them. So, with that context in place, I will pass it over to Carrie and she can talk a bit about her workflow process.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the overall process and how it's changed over time. It used to be a very manual, tedious, and time-consuming project, but it's been improving each semester. At some point before the semester, I reach out to the bookstore and request the course materials list. And when I request it is really important. It's been a balancing act because the list is constantly changing up until the very start of the semester. But you also need enough time to match the list and market it as well so that students haven't already purchased their books. So we're still working on when the best time to request that list is. But once I get the list, I filter the list to just the requested materials. And then this past semester, our list had just shy of 5,000 course sections that had required materials. And then I take the required course material ISBNs and I dedupe them. And then I format them to be processed into Alma Analytics. And this past semester, out of that 5,000 courses, that left about 1,508 unique ISBNs. And you can see in this slide here at the bottom, that's just a small portion of what the data looks like when we get the list from the bookstore. Next slide. So once I've deduped the ISBNs, I drop them into Alma Analytics to identify the titles that are in our catalog as an ebook. So we are part of a 23 campus network and we have a shared catalog. So some items may be in a shared collection. The analytic identifies the titles from the list of those unique ISBNs that are available in an ebook format, but we really only want the nonlinear and unlimited licensed ebooks. But this analytic does not provide the licenses, and we are a single user campus, preferred campus with automatic upgrades turned on. So that has complicated the accuracy of the licenses as they're reflected in the catalog. Analytic itself has changed over time as well, which can be seen here. You can in the bottom of the slide. So I've added the platform and vendor details and other collection info. And that tells us a lot about the license level. So sometimes just from which platform it is on, I know it's unlimited. Like for instance, a publisher platform, those tend to be all unlimited. So then I wouldn't have to check those. I already know they're unlimited. But any of the ebooks on aggregator platforms, I'll need to check their license to make sure they're a multi-user license. And that's the bulk of our books. So for the ones where I can't tell the license by the collection information, I need to do one of two things. I either need to check on the aggregator admin site or access the ebook from the catalog. Over time, this part of the process has changed as well, and I've begun just checking the catalog for all these ebooks, just because there are sometimes more than one platform that it might be available on. It might be part of a subscription as well as perpetually owned. So I have just started going into the actual catalog for each of these. And I can go straight into the book itself. And here you can see what it would look like on the eBook Central platform. So it would say your institution has multiple or unlimited copies of the book. So I go in and I verify the license by looking at the record or going to the ebook itself. And since we are an eBook Central single user preferred campus with automatic upgrades, if there are any that are single user or 3-user, I have to do an additional step and see if it's available to be upgraded to a nonlinear or unlimited platform. So then I take the single and 3 users and I drop them into the platform admin site for whichever platform they are, and I determine their eligibility for upgrading and the cost to do so. I usually will just go ahead and upgrade them right then and there as I'm checking them, but some may be over a maximum upgrade price. And then I need to determine like if it's worth it or not, how many students are in that section that are going to be using the book, and how much the cost is to upgrade. Will the faculty member actually know and inform their students before they purchase the book? So these are some of the considerations and why it's important to go like title by title for me. I also remove any that are just not upgrade or eligible for upgrade, and then that's the final list. So from this past semester, From the 1,500 unique ISBNs, 304 were identified from the analytic as being in the catalog, and then of those, 150 were available in a multi-user format. So it's about 1/10 of the overall number of unique titles that we were able to provide. Okay, next slide. So our head of circulation would then run it through a separate analytic that uses the MMS ID to create the permalink for each title based on a formula. So now at this point, we have two lists. We have the one from the bookstore that has all the important course information, and then we have the one of the titles that we actually own in a multi-user format, and we need to combine them in order to know which ones are for each class. And this used to take the most time of the project. Back when I did it, it was so tedious, it took weeks, and that's because there's just no easy way to match. I used to actually dread doing this project, even though it was a project I really believed in, just because it took so much time and was so tedious. You can't match on the ISBN because the ebook has a different ISBN, or the print ISBN is usually the only one in the bookstore list. And I would try to use VLOOKUP since the Alma analytic list would have multiple ISBNs, but we just found that there were so many that weren't being captured. So then we had to match on title, but this is very time consuming as well because each one has differences. So the bookstore list might have abbreviations, whereas, or it might have the or an in front of it, but our list doesn't. So it was really tricky. It wasn't an easy thing to match up. There might be different editions than the ones that are requested. And also there are sometimes titles that are just so similar. Like this past semester, we had 3 titles by 3 different authors, but they were all just titled Abnormal Psychology. So those are things like you can't just match automatically. You have to look at them. So the list wasn't getting done sometimes, even at the very start of the semester. So we were just pushing it. It was just taking too long. So initially I had our IT person step in who wrote a Python script to help the matching, but it still had a lot of errors. And I think the matching that he used, it was matching on the first set of letters, or like a certain number of letters had to match from both lists. But that didn't help with the titles that were similar or had the same title. So there were just a lot that weren't getting matched in the end, or a lot of errors. So we went back to just doing it manually. And then that's when Eric stepped in and really helped us out. So now I'm going to hand it over to Eric, and he'll talk about how he changed this part of the process.
All right, yeah. So now at this point in the process, we have both of the lists, the bookstore information along with the library ebook lists. And this kind of is a basic breakdown of that process. So we get the lists. From having those lists, I create a way to create a database to store the list data. Before that data can be imported into the database, there's a bit of data cleanup. And then from there, I insert that data, and then I'm able to create a query where we can match the pertinent information that we want from the bookstore with the library ebook information and turn it into that finalized zero-cost course materials list that we share with faculty and students, and it gets posted on our library website. So let's get into the details of that. Yeah, so here is just as Carrie was saying, that the 2 lists that these are the final versions of the list. So the bookstore list contains usually about almost 5,000 items and has all the information you would expect from a bookstore textbook list. So it contains like the department, ISBN, instructor's name, book title, course information, section codes, all of that sort of stuff. And then for the ebook list, it contains the book title, of course, publisher, ISBN, and then the URL to linking to the library's ebook in the catalog. Next slide, please. And so from there, so the way I approach this is by no means the only way to do that. This is just the way that I've approached it. And I just thought in my mind, like creating a relational database to connect both of these sets of data. And so I just created a SQL structured query language relational database, and there's variations on that. I just use a local MySQL server to create that. And I just create one table that stores all the bookstore data. And here's an example of what that looks like down here. And then one other table that incorporates all the ebook library information. So next slide, please. And then, okay, so before I can take the data from the Excel files, from these lists, there's quite a bit of data cleanup that needs to happen. So things like from the bookstore list, and I have sometimes there's like abbreviations of titles, or like all of the book titles will be capitalized, or people's names will be entirely capitalized. I also remove any unnecessary information, so I don't really need publisher information in this list. I'm just looking for the stuff that's going to be relevant to what students need. And then like text to column stuff. So like down below is an example of the ISBN field for the ebooks. And so there are like 19 ISBN fields. And so it's all contained in one column. So I need to do stuff like break it out into individual columns so I can create fields for each of those ISBN fields in the database. And then before I can insert the data into the database, there are special characters that are reserved for the syntax of the SQL language. So things like apostrophes or semicolons or commas and things like that, which tend to show up, excuse me, in people's names, in the titles of books, as you can see from the examples there on the right. Professors' names like O'Connell or Odell or whatever. Those will kind of like mess up the commands within the database when I try to insert that stuff. So a lot of like cleaning up, escaping those special characters. And then from there, once that's all kind of cleaned up and ready to go into the database, I can write a command that just inserts the bookstore data into the bookstore table, ebook information into the ebook table. And then from there, I can just create a query that matches the bookstore textbook ISBN with an ISBN field for one of the ebooks. So it just kind of searches through all of that information, and then I'm able to bring both of those lists together by pulling that ISBN number, book title, and then from the bookstore list, the course number, the department, section code, instructor's name, etc. So all that stuff that's really useful. So that's where we pull it all together. And then that's how we basically create that finalized list. And then after that, I just do a little bit of cleanup, make sure there's no like duplicates or any errors. I also turn it over to circulation to get a few more eyes on that, just to make sure everything looks good, everything's linking to what it should link to. And then from there, we turn it over to our web team who posted on the website. And that's kind of what our zero cost course materials website looks like. It's very it's searchable. You can search by like keyword searching or instructor's name or book name or whatever is easiest for people. And so yeah, we additionally, we also populate these items into our Leganto. These are customized reading lists that get built into Canvas and published onto Canvas. That's something that circulation does. Also, it's used to, I know I contact my faculty when there's books available for my subject area. So I'll let them know, hey, like share this with your students, post it on Canvas, even if they're not aware of it, just to give them a heads up. And this particular website is one of our most visited websites. It's usually within the top 3 or 5 pages every semester, so it gets heavily used. And for this semester, it varies each semester, but we did have about 288 individual books listed, 247 course sections with about 90 professors using or had e-textbooks that were available through the library for free, available to students. So pretty good.
Yeah, and this e-textbook list has sort of become like a really integral part of our OER program on our campus. There's some ways that we've kind of measured this over time. So what you see on the slide here is our cost savings from the last academic year. So over the full year, we were able to save students $4.2 million on their course material costs, and over $1 million of that comes from the library specifically. So it's a huge part of the work that we're doing. And a lot of the times it comes from those like upper level classes. Those tend to be the faculty that I'm connecting to library resources the most often. So OER can be really great for lower level classes, but as classes become more specific, it gets a little bit harder to find OER resources, and our library has become really an important resource for that. So that's also kind of part of the reason the public facing side of this is called the zero cost course materials list. In shorthand amongst ourselves, we call it the e-textbook list, but it's a more nuanced name that kind of ties in with the rest of our campus. So our campus, like all CSU campuses, we're part of the consortium that's called Affordable Learning Solutions. This is where all the campuses connect to do OER and zero cost course material work. And we have been part of that for a while, and they've tracked our progress and seen how important this library e-textbook list is to us. So we get a grant from them every year. And in the last year, kind of recognizing the work that we've been doing, they actually awarded us some additional funds specifically to continue this work on our e-textbook list. So we were provided extra funding that goes specifically toward upgrading those licenses that Carrie mentioned, and also for purchasing new ebooks as well, when working with faculty.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some issues and concerns that have cropped up over the semesters of us doing this project. First, I made the decision to include our subscription ebook titles, ones that come in subscription packages. And that's because there are unlimited access, but there is a chance that they'll get pulled from the collection. Usually we're giving a heads up. I think they do it usually twice a year. And usually you're able to purchase the title before it's withdrawn, but not always. There have been some publishers who did not allow the titles to be purchased. So we did have one time when a book was being used and it got pulled and we weren't able to pull it. We weren't able to purchase it rather. So that's just something to consider, but we just can't possibly purchase all the titles outright. That might be in a subscription package. We just don't have the funds for that. That would be a big chunk of money for us. And generally it doesn't happen. It's only happened once in the 6 years we've been doing it. But we just have to really pay attention to those withdrawal notifications when we get them. I also decided to include our EBA titles. We have done a few EBAs in the past. And so that's for those of you who don't know, an evidence-based acquisition model is like a large collection. So you get access to a bunch of titles, but then at the end of that year, usually you only purchase the ones that are like high use. And so there is a chance that a faculty member might use a book, not inform us, and then we don't end up buying that book because it hasn't been used for the class yet when the EBA has ended. Luckily, that hasn't happened for us, but that falls back on faculty communication, which is just always a problem. Faculty, they're not going to understand ebook licensing and how it works. We have a lot of faculty who just assume it's unlimited and it's available for them to use in their class, and then they find out it's only a single user and students are turned away. So faculty communication is just an ongoing battle. The faculty might also not report the book to the bookstore if they know the library owns it. So if they made a request for us to buy it, then they're like, great, the library has it. I'm just going to put it in my, course, and that's it. And we're, trying to work on this. But it's just faculty communication. And the zero cost course materials don't include those faculty requests, but we're working on this. So we started a faculty request form that includes that course information. So now this is a new part of the process. We're going to go back and look at all the faculty requests and see if they're on the list or not. And if we know they're using for a class, then we're able to add them to that website. And then lastly, I also made the decision to include titles where a different edition might be owned by the library. We don't know how much of the book is being used or how close it is to the edition that is being requested, but I think it's just good, and that could be up to the faculty member whether or not they're going to use it or not. And lastly, we are eBook Central preferred, I mentioned, and that platform is stopping the perpetual ownership of ebooks. So our process is going to continue to change. We have to decide whether we're going to stay on the eBook Central platform or move our own titles over. And if we don't move them over, then we're not going to be able to upgrade any titles. So that's another issue we're going to think of. And Michaela, you want to cover the rest?
Yes. As Carrie sort of alluded to, the list changes basically up until the start of the semester, as sometimes that's adjuncts being added. But there's also an issue of accuracy from the perspective of faculty not reporting their materials to the bookstore at all. This is a really common problem. We talk about it a lot in things related to open education. So if they're not reporting it to the bookstore, obviously then it doesn't make it onto that list. So then it doesn't make it onto our list. So even though there is a state law in place that faculty are required to report this information to their students, that doesn't mean that we've achieved compliance. And truthfully, I don't know any library that any, not even library, any campus that has, and whoever cracks that code will be like an eternal folk hero. Um, Another important part of this process is working with our circulation team to get these materials added to Leganto was a really big improvement because of, as Eric mentioned, some librarians will reach out, contact their faculty. That's certainly what I was doing in my capacity as the OER librarian. And that was kind of sending individual links to faculty. So again, it's a very hands-on, time-consuming process. Leganto made that much easier because they were able to just import the list and then turn it on in the faculty members Canvas page. So when they went there and started populating their materials for the semester, that information was already there and ready to click on. And Leganto is also great for going from semester to semester so that, we do have a couple diligent faculty who reach out to us and say, I'm using this book again. Is the ebook still good to go? Having Leganto makes that much easier. But like probably every library in the US, our budget is a great big question mark. And whether or not we're able to keep Leganto when our subscription ends hasn't fully been decided yet. So again, that's a potential issue we have. And then lastly, to a lot of our surprise, we have an automatic textbook billing program starting on our campus in spring 2026. We're still involved because we have this relationship with the bookstore. We've been working with them for a while. Hopefully we can navigate our way through this, but those do tend to change the relationship that faculty have to the way that they select material. So they may be less inclined to use something that they know is available in the library because students are automatically paying for course materials anyway. Obviously, they have the option to opt out, but any of those extra steps in the way sort of make it a little bit prohibitive to explore those zero cost options. And, so the impact of the library's e-textbook list, I hope won't change too much, but there's the potential to be a disruption there. But certainly, we welcome suggestions from the brain power of the room on anything that could be improved or streamlined. As Carrie mentioned, those communication gaps are hard to always kind of overcome. But, we hope that this presentation has sort of given you an understanding of just like how many hands kind of touch this project and how long. And so, it really takes a village to do some of this stuff. And we would look forward to chatting with folks about this. If they have any questions or suggestions, we're happy to hear them.
Thank you guys so much. One thing that I will say that we're hoping to play around with here soon is using the Leganto AI read the syllabus feature. But of course, there's a pipeline issue there too, like getting the syllabuses in the first place. So they're already like bouncing around ideas about just getting those and putting those in and seeing how well the AI does on the widely formatted syllabus PDFs.
Yeah.
So it might help because then they don't have to report. They just have to give you what they've already produced, but who knows? And who knows how well the AI is going to parse the weird citations.
Or if faculty will even want their syllabus to interact with an AI.
Right. And all that. Okay, we have a couple of questions in the Q&A. The first was Ryan Edwards is asking, what is an evergreen project, as you guys define it? You can mention
Oh,
that.
sorry, I'm using like a podcast term. It just me in my mind, evergreen is just like it's we're always doing it. There's like no, it's not something that we're ever like, okay, this is done, and then we put it away and we don't worry about it anymore. It's something we're perpetually doing and really perpetually fine tuning over the years.
Awesome. And then follow-up question is, how much funding do you all get from ALS for this project?
So we got an additional $5,000.
Oh,
Yeah, it was a one-time thing. It wasn't like rolled into like a perpetual thing. And certainly Carrie can speak a bit to how those funds are used because we're sort of trying to parse them out slowly. Carrie, do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, we are trying to track it in Alma to make sure that any upgrades for books that, Michaela has worked with the faculty member on. So when we upgrade it to a multi-user license, those funds can be used for that. So we created a secondary tracking code in Alma in order to track those purchases.
and then Lauren asks, if the professor is only using an ebook that you provide, do you let them know they can list their class as ZTC? I'm not familiar with this acronym. Or do they continue to provide the book information to the bookstore?
Boy, this is the tricky part. ZTC, zero textbook cost. We call it ZCCM. Everybody's got their own little versions of it. So yes, part of my contact when I let them know that the book is available is not only just to inform them that, but to say this also, if this is the only thing that your class requires, because sometimes we don't know exactly what else, like if it's like a lab or if they have to purchase software. So it always has that caveat, but usually that's what the email that I send says is this book's available through the library. If this is the only thing students are required to purchase, you are eligible to list your class as zero cost in the catalog. And usually I take that one step further and say, just say yes, and I will, I will then tell the people that need to know to try to like limit as many barriers to that as possible. But it certainly happens too where even faculty that I've worked with where we know they're using library materials and they show up and on our list every year, the class may still be incorrectly listed as having no symbol. So it might not show that they have to buy a textbook, but that doesn't mean that it has the actual designation of being a zero cost textbook. And that's sort of another black box problem that we haven't really been able to solve either, is where that communication breakdown happens.
Okay. Another question. You mentioned that the list is always changing up until the start of the semester. If new titles are added by the faculty, are they updated manually, or do you generate two new lists to compile the final list?
We don't. I mean, that's part of the problem is we just have to weigh how soon we can get the list and make the identified books available so that we can get the word out versus how many changes are going to be made that we're not going to be able to identify. We just don't have the capacity to do this whole process twice, like once before the semester and once like the list is finalized. I have had a few instances though where the bookstore reached out because they weren't able to acquire a certain book that was requested. And
Oh,
they asked if we were able to get the title, but that's only happened once.
interesting. Because I wondered if, one of the follow-ups to this is, in an ideal world, you would tell the bookstore you're harvesting at this date. Could they let you know when updates come in? But I would imagine the bookstore is not incentivized to do that because it
No,
might cut into their sales.
but our bookstore has been really great working with us
Okay,
actually.
awesome.
And we have requested it too soon and they're like, it's not ready yet, so wait a few weeks. I think generally the sweet spot is like 2 weeks before the semester.
Awesome. We have actually like 10 minutes left. If anybody has further questions, we can wait a sec. Able to think of them and type them in.
Yeah, I'll just say too about the bookstore. We're really fortunate on our campus because our bookstore is independent. So it's not Follett, it's not Barnes and Noble. That gives us a lot of flexibility to do some of these things. And I think that's part of the reason why we have such a good relationship with them. And they've done a lot of work with us to try to like help get faculty when they're reporting to indicate if they're using library material so that even if they don't say what it is, that's now an option when faculty report to the bookstore. If they say students don't have to purchase material because they're using library stuff, we can get that information and then reach out to the faculty and say like, well, what is it that you're using? Let us just double check to make sure that you're not, sending students down like a one user ebook situation. So I will say that we're very fortunate with the relationships we've been able to establish.
That's great. Yeah, at San Jose State, we do have a bit of that confusion about licenses and simultaneous users. Let me give people another minute if they think of anything else. Oop, I've got somebody who raised a hand. John, give me a second and I will give you speaking permissions. All right. John, go ahead and ask your question.
Oh yeah, thank you. I tried to put it in the Q&A box, but it won't. I can't get in there for some reason.
Oh,
So my question is just about the whether this recording or whether this presentation will be has been recorded or will be available later. I know there's some other people that are not here in my library that would be very interested in seeing what you've done.
yeah, that's a great question. We are recording all of the presentations. We got permission from all the presenters in advance. And we will, as the conference committee, edit them and put them up on the conference website after the fact. So we hope to do that in a week, maybe 2 weeks, and we'll email all attendees
Yeah,
and let them
thank
know.
you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, folks are welcome to reach out to us too. But definitely Eric, if you have data questions.
I've got one, which is he wants to know if the Python code is on GitHub and can they reuse it.
Well, I don't use Python. I suck at Python, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not sure that our IT person who developed the Python code, we're not using it, so I'm not sure. I'm not positive about any of that.
He's probably willing to share it though.
Do you guys have a GitHub?
I think so, because it's used for
Yeah.
I've used it for another project that's not related to this because, like Eric said, we all have like 6 jobs, as most librarians do. And the other job is the repository, and I've used Python for that stuff. So we do have one. I just don't.
I think we don't, at San Jose State, we don't have a library account for GitHub. Like we have a GitHub, but we don't have like our own account. It's a weird thing. But Eric, if people reach out to you, are you happy to share the code?
Yeah, I'm happy to share. It's kind of funny. This is like this project and kind of what I'm doing. I never really intended to share it with anyone, so of course I'm willing to share it. But yeah, it's just sort of like my down and dirty way of connecting this information. So I'm by no means a programmer. I can kind of just I'm familiar with code. I can do stuff, and make things work, kind of hack things together. But I'm by no means a programmer. So yeah, sure.
I think that's all of us in libraries. We got into it and we were like, what can I learn on the fly to make this?
Exactly. Whatever I need to do, I'll do it.
I've got another question that just came in. How does the budget work for getting these often expensive ebooks for courses? I feel like I'm always encouraging faculty to put a print copy on reserve since the ebook cost can be prohibitive.
Yeah, our general collection development policy is that we don't buy ebooks. So unless we know for sure that it's being used for a class and that the faculty member is going to use it, we won't purchase it. And we have a maximum price. So we stick to that maximum price. If it is like a really large class with a lot of sections, they're all going to use that book and it's going to be worth it, we will go over that max price. But for the most part, we stick to our normal ebook max price. So those really cost prohibitive ones, we still don't go forward with.
Oh, I've got another hand. Ryan, you should be able to talk now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My name is Ryan Edwards. I'm systems librarian at West Los Angeles College. I'm managing several grants for zero textbook cost degrees. from money that we got through the state. And so my question is, will the process through the bookstore automatic billing replace your process in the future, or are you going to keep this process going?
It's a big question mark. I think we're going to continue to do things as normal. The first semester is rolling out this spring. And I know just from communicating with other people doing OER work too, that these have not always been successful on other campuses. So there's the potential that maybe we have it for a little while, but it doesn't take, or our students hate it and, march on the president's office, something like that. So I don't think there's any plan for us to stop doing what we're doing. I think maybe the big thing that we've kind of already started doing is changing our messaging a little bit, which is check the ebook list, which we always kind of tell students to do anyway. But in this case, it's like, make sure you check this list, because if your material is there, then you should consider opting out of paying for all of your materials, because if you're not hitting the baseline cost, then it's not going to be a good deal for you to be involved in this like automatic textbook billing. So we're still, I think, going to promote it. It just might have a slightly different kind of messaging of like, you should absolutely check, because this is, the difference between you having to pay for something automatically or not.
Do you purchase single and multi-user licenses for these OER books, or you don't buy OER books at all?
I mean, if they're open, then they do get added to our catalog. So like there are some open textbooks that show up in our OneSearch that we have. But like, if it's something that a faculty member uses from semester to semester, that's kind of what Carrie was saying, is that like, depending on the cost of it, if it's something that is going to benefit a lot of students for a longer term thing versus like, a one-off class that has 5 students, then we might not do something like that. So it really is kind of depend. The threshold is a little malleable.
And just curious, do you buy any books from vendors like Lulu through LibreText? They print OER textbooks.
No, printing is fully the domain of the user. If they want to have a print,
Okay.
students can do that.
Okay. Thanks for answering my questions.
We've got a few more in the Q&A. One is OER designated on the schedule so students can choose an OER class?
Yep. Technically, it's zero cost course material. VCCM. It's a mouthful.
Yeah. Is there incentive for professors to do that?
Yeah, it's been going on long enough that we have some pretty good data, and it always just shows that those sections fill up the fastest. When students know what they're looking for, that's especially helpful for our adjunct faculty, where they're sort of like, if the class doesn't run, obviously they're not going to get paid. So it's been helpful there as kind of a promotional thing of like boosting your enrollment.
That's really interesting. And then this is going to be our last question. Have you seen professors adjust their required materials to save student costs? And are professors on board with zero materials?
Yeah.
You kind of answered that, yeah.
I wouldn't say all of them, but there are definitely some who come to the library basically to ask for us to buy their stuff for that purpose. And, sometimes they have a pretty good awareness of what it's going to cost. And sometimes they seem to have no clue that it's like, it's a Kindle exclusive. Like, no, the library cannot.
Yeah, generally, if they've spoken to us before they develop their class, then yes, they'll try to choose it. But if they've already developed their whole class, and we can't get the book, there's not much we can do.
Yeah.
All right, we are at time. There's going to be 5 minutes, and then the last session is our lightning talks. Carrie, Michaela, Eric, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming and speaking.